Hello again, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Classing Up the Joint. This is the part of the show where we ask kindly people, an adjective beginning with K, kingly questions. That's terrible. K is a terrible word. It's a terrible letter
kingly,
to start
though.
with.
Kingly's good.
All right, we'll take it. Kindly
that.
and kingly. Why not? I am your host, Colin. I use they and he pronouns. I am joined once again by a fantastic guest. I am so excited to talk about all the things they're working on. But first, they will introduce themselves. Hello.
Hello, I'm Stephen Alexander. Use pronouns he, him. I am a part-time lollygagger, which it's my friend group. We run actual plays on YouTube for Adventures in Lollygagging is our channel. And I'm also a game designer, and I've created a game called Huckleberry. More than that, I live on the sunny Pacific Ocean on a boat with my wife and my two dogs. So yeah, that's me. In a
Stephen,
nutshell.
welcome. Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to be joining us. I think part-time lollygagger is my new favorite job description, life description of all time. I may, in fact, steal it. I may have to.
Yeah, it's something I identify with probably too much. I probably should start being a bit more productive, but, then I'd lose the title.
I think a lot that productivity is overrated. This is like a byproduct of capitalism where you must produce. I'm like, no, it's just daydream. Sit outside. I
appreciate that. We need to hang out more often. Make me feel better about how much I lollygag.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Stephen, before we dive into Huckleberry, which I'm very excited to talk about, I do want to ask you the thing that I ask most people first, which is, where did you get your start in tabletop games? And start loosely defined as like, when did you start playing? Like, what was the event, the activity, the campaign that really sunk its hooks in and made you want to do the thing?
So I vividly remember the moment that I first learned that Dungeons and Dragons was even a thing. It was on the 4th grade school bus. And I had just changed schools, so I didn't know any of the kids or anything like that. And it was like a month or two into the new year. And this kid just who lived in my neighborhood who I'd never talked to before. Like, we lived 6 houses away from each other, never spoke. And he sat down next to me on the bus, and he pulled out of his backpack this massive book. This was D&D 3rd edition, and just started showing me these cool pictures, and my mind was blown. I saw all the graphs and the tables. I saw a picture of a bard, and I'm like, yes, that's the class I'm going to play. And he's like, no, you're not going to be a bard. So that was like the first awakening to the new world of gaming. But it wasn't until like years later that I started having like serious campaigns, other than just like, some friends like goofing around with one shots here and there. We didn't play a ton of campaigns. And that was like around 17, 18, 19 with my friends, where we started getting a lot more serious about it. D&D 4th edition was all the rage at the time. Which
you are maybe the second person we have ever had on the show who's even willing to mention 4th edition.
I'll admit it wasn't my edition, but I did like it for what it tried. When it was fresh and new, I'm like, hey, I really appreciate what they're going for here. I played it a bit more, and it's not for me. But that was like where I first started getting a bit more serious, and I told myself, I'm going to be a game designer. 4th edition is new. I'm going to write supplements for 4th edition. And I tried to write supplements for 4th edition, but did not succeed whatsoever. And I cringe when I look at what I did write back at the time.
I feel like that is part of the artistic process, is it not? Yes. Like we write things in our well-spent youth, and then we look at them 10 years later and like, what was I thinking?
Well, the enthusiasm was there. The experience was not.
Yeah, and like the design sensibilities and just the things you learn by playing. Do you look back at any of that and go like, I should rewrite this and make it good? There was like a really solid idea here.
No.
Wow. Okay.
When I think a lot of my own personal sensibilities have changed a lot too with like some of the stuff I was writing. I don't want to say it was like edgelord or anything like that, because it wasn't. But like, I wanted to write a supplement that was all about like Central American mythology. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, that's just entirely cultural appropriation. And I was just too young to even realize that's what it was. So I really do like stay away from that with the 10-foot pole.
I mean, some people never grow out of that, as we've seen with re-releases of D&D adventure books that will go unnamed for now.
Yeah.
There also, it seems like there's a fairly clear line from like starting to play, getting inspired to write, and then I'm going to write supplements. I'm going to write my own game system. And I guess is that correct? Like, what kind of was the arc from like I like playing, I like writing for this system to maybe if I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this system is lacking, I want to do a thing over here with it that I see working better.
I have to give credit to me getting out of the D&D sphere more entirely to my friends over at Adventures in Lollygagging. We play exclusively indie systems. So no shade against D&D, but we've never played it on the channel. We just try a whole bunch of systems. We have a lot of variety. If there's a little known game, there's a good chance we've played it. Before playing with Adventures in Lollygagging, I'd probably played like 3-4 systems. Since then, it's dozens. Like there's just so much. And that is what really like made me start thinking about how I would want my system to be. Because before then, I was happy with D&D. There are flaws about every system, especially if you play it so much, like play years and years and years of a system, you're going to find the cracks in it. But I didn't have a problem with 5e that like, I didn't have a problem that like drove me away from it.
Sure.
I was just lured in by all the fantastic art that was coming out aside from 5e.
Yeah, fair. When I think with that said, the overall question is, please tell me more about Huckleberry. But the more specific, let me think. Maybe let's start with like the elevator pitch. What is Huckleberry and why should people be excited about it? Or why are you excited about it?
Is an action horror Wyrd West game. I like to describe it as Hellboy in Tombstone. You are these doom heroes in a Western setting. There's a lot of like folklore inspired horror. Every scenario starts with like this sort of investigation. There is a mystery that needs to be solved, similar to Call of Cthulhu, but in the end, you actually want to fight the monsters. So
not run away before
like,
they drive you insane.
Exactly. You have a 6-shooter and you are meant to pull the trigger. So it really is half horror investigation and half action. And it transitions very easily from one to the other by the end of the scenario.
That is so cool. And I feel like it's really immediately in my head, there are like multiple other pieces of both pop culture and games that like really try to fuse these two worlds together and very successfully. I feel like it's a very fertile cross-pollination, if you will. Why was that the thing that appealed to you? Like what for you was like, these are the genres, I'm excited about this?
Again, a lot of credit goes to my friends with Adventures in Lollygagging. You surround yourself with good people and like inspiration comes. I've always been a huge Hellboy fan. I've loved the comics for years and years and years now. I even have a tattoo on my arm that's some Mike Mignola art.
Awesome.
And I've always been like immersed with like that type of folklore horror. And my first foray into game design was creating a game I called The Bureau, which was essentially meant to be like a BPRD style game, like a Hellboy style game, because I wasn't very fond of the Hellboy 5e RPG that came out. And I'm like, I'm going to make my own and do this right. And then I got into it and I'm like, this is a lot of work. Why am I doing why am I trying to fix someone else's system when I should just make my own system? And around that time, my friends on Adventures in Lollygagging were playing some Wyrd West games. I had just discovered Haunted West as well, which is a fantastic system that I really enjoyed. And I just got into like this Wyrd West groove because I loved Western movies growing up, just the adventure of it all. I've always been a fan of adventure films. And I just like kind of erased the title of The Bureau and I started reskinning things. And then Huckleberry came into existence from there. It was kind of like a a gradual process that kind of took me by surprise. I didn't plan on making a Wyrd West game. I just wanted to make my own system, and I knew it would be action horror. And then it ended up settling into the Wyrd West genre, which fit it so perfectly.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those things that I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that I was designing a Wyrd West game from the get-go, because I had a lot of those themes just from like growing up. You know, that's like the stuff I was always drawn to, and I was putting it into the system. And then my subconscious was just helping me out in the future, I guess.
Yeah. Good job, past self, subconscious self. Quick aside for a hot take, how do you feel about the Hellboy movies?
Okay. So Ron Perlman, I love. Guillermo del Toro, I think he's a fantastic director. His 2 movies, I think, are great films. I don't think they're Hellboy films. I think they're del Toro films.
Sure.
It is his take on Hellboy, and it's a lovely take on Hellboy. I enjoy watching them, but I don't really think it captures the comics perfectly well. 2019 Hellboy, I try not to talk about when I can.
Yep. Yeah, it's like 4th edition. We're aware of its existence. We just don't talk about it.
There were some choices. I remember like thinking, oh, that's a choice. That is a choice. I would not have made that choice if I was making this film.
Yeah.
And then Hellboy Crooked Man, the newest one, I'm a defender of. I think that they did a good job with a very low budget to try and capture the Hellboy comics. I think there are some missteps, but also like not nearly as bad as the other films. So I had low expectations, I guess.
Sure.
I think the 4th one is probably the best adaptation of Hellboy the character, if not like a perfect. It struggles as a film, but as an adaptation, I think it succeeds.
Cool. No, great. I am curious because like I saw the Ron Perlman ones. I had mixed feelings, although I think both of them had moments that really spoke to me, both like in terms of like being good filmmaking and good storytelling, and being like the books that I remembered. I hadn't seen the more recent ones, but now I feel like I'll at least try to check it out. Cool.
Yeah, I think it's worth a watch if you're a Hellboy fan. If you're not a Hellboy fan, you'll be like, was this necessary?
Sure.
But for the fans, I think it was a love letter to the fans. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah, noted. Anyway, we're always all about side tangents and then forgetting what I was actually going to talk about. Sure.
We can make the whole episode about Hellboy. I'm fine with that. I love this.
I could. I'm not going to. I'm going to resist. I am curious just about where the name Huckleberry came from, because I would not call myself like typical necessarily, but like when I would see that word written or think about it, to me that like, I mean, this is maybe a product of my times. I think about Brian Jacques and Redwall immediately, and I think of like odd berries and like something that's to me feels more it is a name that to me feels more evocative of something like Wanderhome or one of the kind of like the cozy games, if you will. So I'm curious how that became the name for a weird horror Western.
As a fellow Redwall fan, I read every single book that was published during my childhood. I absolutely understand. Huckleberry is specifically a reference to a quote from the movie Tombstone, which is one of my favorite Western films, where Val Kilmer says, "I'm your Huckleberry," when he's like accepting a duel with the villain. And I actually went back and forth on the title quite a bit, because for the same reason that you're saying, like Huckleberry, I'm like, is that necessarily Western? Is it necessarily iconic enough? And I had a whole list of names. I remember one of them was Old Gods in the Old West before I dropped like the Cthulhu mythos aspect. I started focusing a bit more on like folklore and things like that. And nothing really just stuck the same way. Huckleberry ended up being like a working title because some of my friends who were like reading and giving me feedback on it were like, well, Huckleberry is they loved Westerns too. They loved Tombstone. They're like, Huckleberry is, a fantastic title. Awesome. And that's kind of just what we started like referring to it as. And once it got in my head in that way as a working title, I just couldn't get away to something else.
Yeah, no, very hard to shift course once it's really like lodged in there. Yeah.
I am also one of those people that like as soon as you name something, you hate the name immediately. So like there's
Uh-huh.
whenever I name something, 6 months later, I'm going to be like, oh, why did I name it that?
Yeah.
Huckleberry has stood the test of time better than other titles with me because I love Tombstone so much. And it's
Yeah.
one of the touchstones of the game for me, one of the cultural touchstones. I will say there's an online rumor that goes around and where people say, well, Val Kilmer didn't say Huckleberry. He said, I'm your hucklebearer. And they go into this whole definition about like a hucklebearer means like a pallbearer because
Okay.
the posts were made out of hucklewood or something like that. It's completely false. It's been disproven a dozen times.
Well, it's
but
one of those internet things. I'm like, it's
Yes.
just barely plausible. I've never
Yes.
heard of anything called hucklewood or anything that would refer to a coffin as a huckle for some reason.
And because it has that like definition that goes with it, here's the reasoning why he says that. And what I've learned not to argue on the internet, as anyone who wants to keep their sanity will do.
You are wiser than I am, for sure.
So now I just I always reply to those comments with a link to Val Kilmer's autobiography. That Val Kilmer wrote a book titled "I'm Your Huckleberry," and it's spelled Huckleberry. So
perfect. It's the perfect. You're like, I don't need to say anything. Val Kilmer said it for me. Oh, what a good way to defuse those arguments, though, for sure. I'm so glad you have that resource.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit, I think, about the gameplay or mechanics, related, tangential, similar things. So you mentioned that there's kind of the horror investigation aspect, there's the action aspect, and how well they intertwine. But if I was to say, start playing tomorrow, what does it kind of look like? What does a typical session look like? Or and maybe also at this point, like, what sort of dice system did you find works best for yourself or works best for this?
The mechanics are really a melting pot of just games that I've enjoyed playing and mechanics that felt elegant to me. The core mechanic is that you have an attribute and a skill, and each one has a die size associated with it. And you always roll those 2 dice, and you add them together, and you look for a 10 or better. So if you roll a D6 and a D12 and you get an 11, that is a success. And that's a successful stop. There's no like intermediate, but you do earn momentum if you roll higher. So for every pair above a 10, we say pair for like the poker terms, but for a 12, a 14, 16, 18, you get dealt an ace. And you can pocket an ace. We say we tuck it up your sleeve. Or you can spend it immediately, and you can do like stunts with that. So if you've played like a year 0 game where you get extra successes, you can spend those successes on things. It's similar to that, where if you get aces, you can spend them to do things. So say you're trying to draw on a gunslinger down the road from you, and you get the 10, you succeed, you're going to hit them. If you spend aces, you can do things like shoot the gun out of their hand, shoot their hat off their head. You can inflict bleeding on them, so they're going to slowly bleed out over time. So you're going to get the success and the damage because it's an action-based game. There's hit points and stuff like that. With the 10, you get a success no matter what, and then you get to add flourishes on top of that. That is the primary mechanic of the game. The game itself is rather, I think it's fairly rules light. Some people may disagree with me because they're used to like very, very rules light games. It's not OSR where it's just you roll a d20 and then that's it. There's a little bit more, but it's not a lot more. And it begins with a lot of like social deduction. We have a clue system where you go through the scenario and you try to find hidden clues, lock clues. Lock clues require a skill check to find. Hidden clues just require you to interact with the environment. Open clues are given to you just by being present in a scene. So if you walk into a room and there's an open clue, the GM knows that like, hey, I need to give this information by the end of the scene. Things along that line. And it starts, like I've said before, with investigation. You go through a whole bunch of different scenes. You talk to people. You try to figure out what sort of monster is plaguing them. You try to solve their problems. And when you finally do track down the monster, you start taking shots at it. And that's essentially the whole core game loop right there.
Is it analogous in a way, or was like Monster of the Week part of the inspiration in there? Because there's a way that mechanic, that kind of that loop that would keep going, seems not totally unsimilar just from a narrative perspective. Like Yeah, maybe I think
No,
that
I
is the
get what you're
question.
saying.
I'm like thinking of half a different one.
So in a way, yes and no. Monster of
Okay.
the Week,
Yeah.
the system was not one of my inspirations whatsoever. I've never actually played it. I've seen it played and I enjoy it. I think it's a great system.
Sure.
But it wasn't necessarily what I was trying to put into it. But what Monster of the Week was inspired by, shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Absolutely.
X-Files, things like that.
Yeah.
Those were absolutely an inspiration for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a bounty system in Huckleberry where every scenario that you get from us comes with a like fully illustrated poster that can be a digital handout or a printed handout. I love handouts. So I try to make them as easy as we can for everybody. And then you can, the GM at like the beginning of the campaign can lay out these 5 or 6 different wanted posters of like different threads for players to pursue. And they can actually physically look at these posters and decide this is the one we want to go after now, or that's the one we want to go after later. And it allows them to like shape the story of the campaign. I call it like, it's like a sandbox game, but it's also a guided sandbox.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not on rails where you have to go a single specific direction, but there are just, it allows the GM to prep a little bit more because they know like, okay, we've got these 4 plot threads that they might want to pursue. And I'm going to be able to gauge the interest to know which ones to, plan on us actually playing. And then, okay, these plot threads, they're not ones that they're actually interested in. We'll drop those bounties off and we'll introduce new bounties, as things progress.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like Monster of the Week, like as a trope, is very much an inspiration. Because like itself. These are the bounties that they want to pursue this time. Yeah.
I'm curious also like how in your playtesting and or as you building it and conceptualizing how that translates to a longer campaign. And I guess my head kind of goes to like, well, you make a longer story out of like, the big bad has found a cache of monsters and is releasing them, and like the town is getting attacked by all these things individually, and you're not going to find out till later that it's that person's responsibility. But I think that's the low-hanging fruit. And so I'm curious, like, as you've been building and playtesting, how you've adapted this approach to fit a longer format.
Yeah, so that's absolutely a perfectly fine way to go about building a Huckleberry campaign. One of my initial campaigns was kind of inspired by I'm sorry, my mind is blanking. A Fistful of Dollars. How could I not get that out? Which, of course, is inspired by Japanese samurai films. But the core story is that there are 2 bosses in this town that are like kind of vying with each other for power. And the hero is helping one and then helping the other. And you don't really know who their allegiances lie to. That was kind of the framework of my playtest campaign. Is that there were 2 bosses in town and they would post their own bounties that would help themselves and kind of hurt another one, or essentially like just their specific job listings. Meanwhile, there were a lot of other bounties that were unrelated to those 2, but those 2 created the core plot line that went through. Gotcha. And it allowed you to get to know those bosses by doing jobs with them, interacting with them until the campaign kind of came to a climax, and you have to decide, okay, are we going to side with one of these for good? They're both bad people. Are we going to try and depose them both? How is that going to happen? And at that point, the bounties became much more specialized to the players. Whereas before, I could create a bounty like, okay, this boss has a problem over here. I know it's a monster over there. But eventually it became like, okay, this boss is hiring you to take out the second boss. Are you going to take that job or not? You know that this is going to cause problems. And the players by then had already decided, absolutely, they hate this person more than this person. This is what we're going to do. The second campaign framework that I've been discussing this with a friend, I don't know if we'll actually pursue it or not, is for me, I take a lot of inspiration from Adventures of Briscoe County or the Bruce Campbell Western show, where it's again very Monster of the Week, but the core premise of the entire season is that he's chasing down a gang of outlaws, but they're not all together. So he's going after one outlaw at a time, and that could make a fantastic campaign as well. where you just want to go after this specific outlaw and then the next one. And then eventually you get to the leader of the gang who's the most powerful. And you've already built up a history with all these people. So there's a couple different ways to go about it. Like you said, even having a big bad guy that's just constantly releasing monsters, that's a perfectly fine way to go. And it ends up, coming down to the GM and just what they're interested in, I think.
Yeah. Well, and presumably, hopefully, talking to your players and figuring out figuring out or absorbing through play what they're most interested in. Yeah. Oh wow, I had a thought and then it just like totally escaped me.
I'm sorry, I just kept talking and talking.
No, you're good. It's the day brain farts and we're here and that's the most important part. I think it was along the lines of yes, if some of the what is being released along with the core rule book, and if that includes either kind of these campaigns that you were playtesting and building, if you have written some of those as well.
So
and if we want to talk, I guess more generally about like the release and it's happening and it's cool and what can people get.
We had a successful crowdfunder back in October. We had over 600 backers that I was just blown away by. For my first crowdfunder, I could not have asked for a better result. And the premise for the backer kit is that we were going to release the core book with all the rules and a second book with all of the bounties that we had published so far, which was a total of 6 bounties. I'm sorry, 7 bounties. And we had a whole bunch of stretch goals because we did so well that I'm adding another chapter to the core book that specifically has like guidelines for how to run the world in the background. So as you're going after bounties, there's time that's passing. It's not like you're going from, starting to saving the world in a week like some D&D campaigns do. There's supposed to be months, if not years, over the course of this campaign. It's very slow in the Wyrd West. So there is a whole new chapter being added to the core book that is just specifically how to have like story events and story beats that go in the background. That is designed by Dylan Grinder and Kiana Shaw. I hired out for them, and they did a fantastic job. They finished it. It is going through editing right now. I'm very, very proud of it. It'll be in playtesting, open playtesting very soon, and then we'll be getting into layout. And then the second book that had 7 bounties in it has now been expanded to 10. Nice. So if someone wanted to just like have a series of bounties to just populate that bounty board to start with, they have 10 options. You only need like 5 to start a campaign with. So this really is there's so much variety here. I've written 3 of them, so you're not going to have like the same flavor for every single one. There are multiple different authors there who have all brought fantastic ideas to the show. And I'm just very proud of how it's shaped up because there's so much content to start with. And as a person who's GM'd a lot of games, I like being called the forever GM. I prefer to be the GM more often than not. But I get frustrated with so many indie games that the system is released, the rules are released, and then there's like no follow-up to it. Like, okay, what do you expect a scenario to look like? And it's just, I don't know. I guess I'm just framing this through my existing idea of gaming and things like that. And when a system releases with an introductory scenario, I jump on that. That's always the first way I run the system, just to like get the hang of it, see how it goes. And I love when a system has that extra follow-up as well with multiple scenarios that came after.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm very proud to be able to release that from the get-go, just from a personal satisfaction. Like, this is my play style, so I like being able to fulfill it.
Of course. And congratulations. I know, like, backer kit specifically was something we wanted to talk about. I want to rewind, and I'm going to ask both of these questions because I'm thinking out of more kind of specific to the internal mechanics of the game. I'm curious how you chose to handle or ignore extended travel periods, which, D&D handles very poorly by and large, at least in its core books. And most people are like, it's been 2 months and you went from this city to this city. We're here. So that's kind of part one, if there's like travel mechanics or things. And 2 is maybe just like a small overview of the archetypes or character classes and how you kind of came up with that system, if that is in fact part of it, which it seems like maybe. So I'm going to try to remember both of those, but I wanted to say them both. So starting with, is there a travel mechanic? How did you approach these like months passing in game?
Yeah, so I love Forbidden Lands and Year Zero games, and Forbidden Lands has fantastic travel mechanics. And I was thinking, like, how do I do this with a Western setting? And I just kept hammering myself over the head about how to figure this out until I realized that it just didn't matter for my game. My game was not a hex crawl, and to try to add travel mechanics bogged down from the story because I wanted action horror, and travel does not contribute to either of those scenarios. So it was very difficult for me to cut those mechanics. But eventually I decided that this is going to be like the old Western TV show Gunsmoke, where all the action happens where it needs to happen.
Yeah, totally.
In Huckleberry, there is a hub that we call your hole in the wall. It's like your home base, your hometown. It could be a train that's on the move that you just live on a train. It could be an actual Old West town. It could be like a Oregon Trail style caravan of wagons if you want.
Sure.
Whatever it is, though, that is where you will always come back to between bounties. And then the bounties are wherever they need to be. Right. So when you actually put bounties on a map, you kind of lose something in a way. It feels a little bit better when it's vague. The world is unknown. There's a lot of mystery and horror out there because it's places that you have not explored before. You don't actually know what's there. So in the book, we just say to give guidelines, like if you need a mountain range to be to the north, just remember it's to the north. And you don't need to know much more than that. If
internal
the scenario
consistency
calls for,
is more important.
Yes. If the scenario calls for a swamp and it's to the southeast, well, you just write down swamp southeast and that'll be it. And you just montage to theirs. So like the scenarios that we have pre-written, we don't have any sort of travel encounters built into there. We just start them where like the action and the mystery is. And we let the GM and the players decide how that happens. I recommend just starting it. So say that the players like want to go after this bounty. Okay, so you have traveled for a few days, and now you are at this bounty, and that's where we're starting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a really smart decision to it, and also, again, like it's not always easy to recognize that mid-design process and be like, that thing that I was working on is going away.
It's a problem I still want to solve. I really do, because I just love the idea of travel mechanics. But when you actually enact them, it's just so much more difficult, and it just bogs things down in a way.
I feel like it's handled very poorly by many systems. I'm trying to remember someone that was on the show recently was telling me about how they handle it. I'm going to see if I have any idea who or what that was. It's possible it was John McNabb talking about Morgulad, this 4D6. Anyway, but yeah, like to me, I think the flavor and even, kind of the horror and the narrative continues if you want to lean into the survival horror aspect. You're like, you're in the West, you're in the desert. There's rattlesnakes. There's other things that could eat or poison you. There's horrible magical things that might have happened. There's maybe the ghosts of imperialism past, but if that's not the story you're telling, then it's really, I would argue, non-essential.
And that's exactly what I realized, is that I wasn't going for survival horror. I wanted folklore horror. I wanted the story and the narrative to be more important than just like, do we have enough water to make it? Are we going to be in this desert? And part of it's because we have that home base. I want people to always return to the home base. And survival horror, I feel like, requires you to be out in the wild for a long period of time, where you have to start like managing your resources in a way. And I love the idea of that. I really do. But it just wasn't what Huckleberry was shaping up to be. So I had to refocus. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I think sometimes those games are a very hard sell for me. But that's me.
I think like Forbidden Lands did it really well with like their resource dice and things like that, where you don't have to like necessarily check off boxes or something like that, but you roll to see how well you're doing on resources. And if I was going to play a hex crawl, like Forbidden Lands is like the way I would want to do it again. But I don't know how I would approach the problem just yet.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I also think there's the other thing that I've seen travel and time passing used effectively and that I like generally approve of is like, how do you then not force, but like, how do you encourage a role play scene to happen? You know, the like, you've been traveling, roll a die to see whose turn it is to make a fire and tell a story that night. And that character, you know, anyway.
No,
Cool.
and
Yeah.
that actually touches on something else that's important to Huckleberry is that I did want time to pass. Like I said, I expect like
Right.
months and years to pass, but I was thinking I don't necessarily want it to happen in the wild. I want people to become like attached to their world. So when most of the time passes, it happens in town. So most of like the character advancement, which you asked about character archetypes, I can probably tie that in here.
Let's do it.
Is that the character advancement happens by spending time in town, and you choose whether you're going to be gambling in town, whether you're going to be shopping like for new gear, if you're going to be training new skills, if you're going to be philosophizing, I call it, where you start learning new traits. So the system itself does not have classes. It does not have archetypes. We have 4 categories of traits. We have your blood, your flesh, your calling, and your disposition. Blood and flesh are physical traits that are, blood is one that you have inherited from your parents. Flesh is something that's unique to you. Your calling is a skill that you've picked up along the way before you became this occult bounty hunter. And your disposition is just a personality trait. And those are the 4 traits that you start with, and you can gain new traits as you go. Like I said, if you start spending time philosophizing, your personality will change a little bit, and you can pick up a second disposition trait, or you can replace a disposition trait you already have. And the other main way that character advancement happens is by modifying your weapons and your gear. So in a Western movie, your gun is almost as much a part of your character as anything else. Like your costume and your gun are a lot about your personality. And I try to represent that in Huckleberry as well. A lot of your abilities that happen in combat come from the weapon that you choose. That'll decide like whether you're firing a lot of shots, whether you're going up and punching people. You're allowed to modify your guns with new tags that allow you to, say, throw them further, whether you have more ammunition, whether you have longer range, and things like that. So it's really meant to be something that you like tinker with throughout a campaign, and you really like personalize it to yourself. And that is honestly one of the biggest parts of character creation and advancement is just deciding what you want your gear to look like. And that includes like your kits and stuff like that too. Like whether you have a lasso on you or a jerry can of kerosene, you know, like that kind of stuff. And it decides how you solve problems going forward.
I love that. I think I really appreciate that it is more than many other systems. There's an acknowledgement that as you play the game more, as your character does more things, it is probably going to affect them in some way. It's probably going to change their mind, change their appearance, like change their attitude about their weapon, whatever it might be. And that I appreciate that it is that you don't need to just go buy new shit. It is work on the things you have and make them more in alignment with your character.
Yes, 100%. And one of the big inspirations for that, I don't know if you've seen the movie Quigley Down Under with Tom Selleck. It's a Western film, but it's set in Australia. It's this cheesy 90s film, awesome. And it's very dear to my heart. But the character is known for just having this very fancy custom rifle. And he's a sharpshooter and he can shoot further than anyone else. And he's a superhero because he's a sharpshooter. Like it doesn't actually make sense when you think about it. But because, you know, he has a rifle that shoots further than anyone else's rifle, he's able to solve the world's problems. And you know, that's kind of what Huckleberry
a bigger,
is.
longer gun is all you really need, at least in a fictional world.
And sometimes it just becomes a club when you need it. And sometimes he's just punching people instead. But you know, he's still got that gun, and that's why he's able to punch people so hard.
That's so cool. I love that. What an interesting way to approach character creation and evolution. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey there, rollers. Colin here with your midroll.
And we're going to do a slightly different mid-roll today because we're talking to Stephen Alexander and we're talking about the Huckleberry RPG. And what sort of mid-roll would it be if I didn't tell you about that game and where you could get it? As you may have heard by this point, Huckleberry is a Wyrd Western. It is an investigation. It is a horror. It is an action RPG. It is all of the above. And if you are as excited about it as I am, you could have it in your possession soon. Just go to huckleberryrpg.com where you can place a pre-order for the physical book, you can order the PDF, and just for our listeners, if you use the code LOLLY, L-O-L-L-Y, you can get $5 off your purchase price. Super cool. I think it's definitely worth it. I hope you do as well. It has been such a delight talking to Stephen about this game. This game seems super, super fun and should be on your RPG bookshelf and played at your home games. Additionally, of course, if you like what we are doing here on The Roll Report, you can find us on Blue Sky and TikTok and Instagram at The Roll Report Cast. And if you really, really love what we're doing, you can find us at patreon.com/The Roll Report. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month if you feel so inclined. We would be so super grateful for your support and having you with us on this ride. Thank you for listening. Thank you to all of you that have already donated/supported us. And if you haven't, maybe see if you got a spare dollar in your pocket. Back to the show.
I think before like Wrench gets back to like how the backer kit was going and things, is there something in the mechanics that you like or feel particularly proud of that we haven't talked about yet, or generally anything about like the game itself that we haven't talked about that before I'm like, tell me about your budgeting and marketing schemes we want to address?
No, we covered a lot of it. There's obviously more to the mechanics than that. Like we have a mount system where you can have a horse or maybe even a buffalo, something a little bit stranger.
Love that.
And I am especially proud of how the scenarios supplement those advancements, like you said, where like the things that you do should help you advance. Right. I make sure that in our scenarios, there's always like one piece of like unique loot that you can get. And it might be a kit. It might be like, oh, you go to the swamp, they have rideable gators. So you might be able to ride an alligator if you do this perfect scenario, this specific scenario. Yeah. And I always, in the back of my head, I hope that like people will be able to like, get on our Discord and talk to each other. Like, did you run this scenario? And did you get this cool gun from that? Oh yeah, my character has that one. Have you tried this one? Do you have that kind of thing? And so on. It's still very early, and that's the romanticism of me taking off. But I really try to support that, like, these scenarios give you ways to make your character unique, specifically by playing them and how they impact you.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. Well, so again, the broad question is like, how was self-funding your first like full, I developed this game, this is my baby. And maybe, there are a number of specific things in there, but like, yeah, how was the overall experience for you? Do you think there are things you would do again or do very differently should it happen again?
The overall experience could be summarized in one word as stressful.
Sounds right. Yeah. Sounds about right based on everything I've heard. Yeah.
There have been so many times I've asked myself, why did I want to do this again? Because like the actual magic of making the game, I loved actually making the system. I love working with our artist, George Sellis, who's fantastic. And I give him like these vague one-line ideas and he just emails me a masterpiece of art that I now get to put in my game and, call my own. There's so much to love about the actual making of a game that is just incredibly rewarding. And then it comes to like marketing a game, which is just soul sucking. Where like you're just trying to get the word out and people are like, okay, buddy, we already have game systems. It's great that you've got your own though. I've talked about this before, and it feels like every time that I was like shouting into the void of the social media and internet that it is, there was maybe like I was able to push the needle like 0.1% every time I shouted. And it's just completely unmeasurable in a single point. But then after about a year or so, I was able to look back and see that there had been progress that was made. That like, hey, people are paying attention. People are, following. People are on the Discord asking questions about it. Hey, there's a guy I've never met who's just run a full campaign of Huckleberry. Like that's an incredibly rewarding experience that I don't know what specific items actually succeed, helped me hit those goals, but I know that I had to do all of it, and I had to just go through that soul-crushing experience of marketing to actually achieve it. And then it came time for the backer kit, and a lot of my work was rewarded. The backer kit itself is a huge catalyst for marketing, where most of the people who backed on the backer kit had never heard of Huckleberry before. It's not like I had that massive following going into it.
Yeah.
But because I had sorry, did you have a question?
I was going to say just timeline in my head, because I'm thinking about this. So it sounds like you kind of had to start marketing, start pitching like, hey, this is in development. This is going to be so cool. As you create each new page and it succeeds, you post picture that. And then
that's actually also very close to what I did. I released Huckleberry
halfway more complete when backerkit launched.
So the game was half. I had an 80-page PDF that was fully laid out, fully play tested. The rules were good to go, and I released that as Huckleberry Early Access. And it was a paid product, but I promised them that as soon as you purchase it, you have every single update for life, and you get the full game when it's added. And then for the next year and 2 months, I just consistently updated that early access. So it started at 80 pages, and it ended at 162, I think it was. So it more than doubled in size. And the people who bought it early did not have to pay a single cent for any of the new updates that included more art, stuff like that. So the original game didn't have mounts. It didn't have a ton of rules for holes in the wall. It only had 10 hostile stat blocks that you could use for monsters to fight against. And it just continually got bigger and bigger. And every time I did an update, I was able to have something new to talk about. Right. And that's where it was, where I was able to hey, look, progress is being made. And then when it came time to the backer kit, also I had a small group of people who were
small but enthusiastic.
Hey, exactly. Yeah. Yes. And they were able to look and see hey, he's been working on this for a year and a half, and he's proven that he has a track record. He's not disappeared. It wasn't like this game just dropped off the map. As soon as he released it in early access, you can see okay, he made this update with these things were added. And I made sure that I had change logs for all the updates that were publicly posted so people could see the history of it all.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped build a lot of trust. Just people being able to see the history of the game when they came in.
Because you're actively working on it still. You didn't just make the 80 pages and go, good enough.
Exactly.
I'm going to do this other thing now. Yeah.
And then when I actually launched the backer kit, the game itself was complete. And I was very proud of where the game was. And I said, we had a goal of $7,000. And if we hit that $7,000, okay, I will get this game printed. I will get it sent to you. And it will be very, very fast because the game's already finished. So you don't have to worry about waiting on me to, add new chapters and stuff like that. Because of stretch goals, I am adding new chapters and things like that. But where the game was when we launched is finished, and now it's just finished plus, I guess, is how I would describe it. You get a few extra bonuses now. So, I think if I had not released early access, I wouldn't have had personally so many things to talk about throughout that year process. And I would have probably just given up because how often can you just tell people hey, I've got a game? But if you say hey, I've got an update, that's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot easier to talk about.
Yeah, you're maintaining your presence in people's mind. You are giving them something new each time.
Yeah, and it's a bit of substance to it.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Um, are there things? I know you're kind of like it's hard to know even when you have the back end numbers, but is there besides the consistency of updates and being able to like show that the game is continually being worked on, when it came to marketing the actual backer kit itself, was there anything that was like, yes, that one really worked, I posted this thing and I saw 20 new backers show up, or anything similar to that?
There is a firm answer to this, and it breaks my heart what the answer is. Facebook marketing was by
horrible.
far the best.
Oh, I hate it. I'm so sad.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know. It's so awful. When I talk about soul sucking, that's the biggest thing for me. That like, I have to acquiesce to this capitalist society to try and get the word out. There were other things I did where there were YouTube videos with big influencers who like covered Huckleberry, and they were helpful. There were bloggers that covered Huckleberry. I reached out to so many people. That's one of the reasons I reached out to you.
Absolutely.
And now we're connecting later. And all of those, like I said, they all pushed the needle, but nothing was nearly as measurable as Facebook ads. And I hate to say that. It's so sad.
But I am sad on your behalf as well. I feel the pain. And I also think it's important to recognize if that is where people are or the way to reach people, that like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Like sooner or later, you got to just like bite your tongue a little bit and do the thing that's going to get your art in front of the most people.
I want nothing more than a day where I have enough people that are just like interested in the stuff I make that I can post, and I don't have to do any sort of like Facebook marketing or anything like that. And it's okay if the projects don't make as much money as they did before. Like,
sure,
eternal growth is a lie. Like you're never going to always do better than you did before.
It is a gross, weird form of capitalism that causes a lot of damage. Yeah.
But if I can just, keep some people that are excited and that are willing to be interested in these games, and I don't have to delve into that anymore, that would be the dream for me. That's all it would take.
Yeah, totally. God, that is the dream, I think.
That is the dream, yeah. I'm not asking a lot, am I? Just more than like
I
1% of all designers.
Capitalism might argue yes. I'm curious on that note. This is like slight tangent. So something that I have observed. I come from a performing background. I see what happens in a lot of performing companies across disciplines, from dance to theater, circus, all the things. You achieve a measure of success, and your audience shows up for you, whatever form that takes, and you make money, and then it can lead to a creative stagnation where you're like, that's what my audience wants, I must keep delivering that. There's a dance company here in the Bay Area that's been around for 40 years. I saw a show that had a piece from 1995, 2005, 2015. They all looked exactly the same. Exactly the same, slightly different music. Very pretty, but I'm like, and so in that vein, I'm curious, like, if you already have thoughts of what is next. And that is, I know, a very early and slightly loaded question, but I guess I don't know if you feel any of that same, like, oh, people showed up for my Wyrd West. Do I need to do something in that genre again? Or do you just like, no, I'm going to make what I want to make, and people are going to show up, hopefully?
Depends on the day you ask me.
Fair enough.
I am a notorious commitment phobe, because when I do commit to something, I want to see it all the way through. So like Huckleberry has been years in the making now, and I regret committing to it at times, but I will see it all the way through because I did commit to it. So it's hard for me to like commit to this being my next project and things like that. I have 3 different ideas for games that I would like that aren't Huckleberry, that I would like to create. One of them is a cozy animal-based, like sort of like Redwall, but like harbor-based type game, because I live on a boat and I get a lot of inspiration from that. One of them is the BPRD style game that I had originally like set out to create. I'd like to go back and revisit that. Another one I enjoy, like early Anglo-Saxon England, and I would like to create like a Beowulf-inspired game.
Cool.
Because there's never been a good Beowulf adaptation aside from the 13th Warrior, which was not necessarily that good of a movie anyways.
Yeah.
So, if no one else can do it well, surely I can not do it well too.
Yeah. That's a great floor. You're like, the floor is low. I'm going to not do it well. And so my ceiling might be like infinitely higher than that.
And that's my comfort zone. If there's a low bar, that's where I'm comfortable at. And I'm like, okay, I can jump a low bar.
A friend of mine has started saying recently, and I'm like, this is great. I can't believe no one said this earlier. Under promise and over deliver.
That's the story of my life.
Brilliant. Yes.
I'm not over delivering by a lot, but I did under promise by a lot.
Sure. Well, and I think it's, I would go back to, I think that's honestly, maybe I'm wrong. That seems like a relatively decent marketing strategy, in the sense that you're promising delivery of a completed game, and then the stretch goal is like, well, if you like what we're doing, we can do more. We can.
Exactly.
And even I wouldn't be surprised if any number of creators already have those stretch goals back pocketed, and they're like, well, I'm just going to not put it out unless I get the money for it, kind of thing.
Well, no, that's actually to lift the curtain a bit. Like I was talking about the chapter with Kiana Shaw and Dylan Grinder. I had contacted them before the backer kit was successful, knowing that I wanted those rules made and knowing that they would be a good fit to make them. But if the campaign wasn't successful, it would have been released as a digital, add-on product, where you would have had to pay separately for it. It wouldn't be in the core book. But like they were going to happen because like that's just like production timelines. It takes a long time to actually create something. But because the campaign was successful, then we got to roll it into the core book. We get to fancy it up a little bit. We get to actually make sure that it fits with everything else. We get to add some more art to it. So it is more like, because you showed up, you get more. It doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't have happened, but you would not have gotten it for free. It would not have been included, So like, I think everyone still wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. You mentioned something that like brings up a note that I took when we initially spoke, which is about learning the steps and hoops to jump through of actually getting your own game to a physical product. I feel like many of us and many listeners are familiar with like, if I'm making a digital, if I'm going to only release a PDF, I got to write it. Maybe I'll find some art, and I got a layout, and then it's done. But I think I'm curious what you have learned about the steps of making an actual physical product happen through this launch.
Yeah, there is so much that I did not even realize I did not know. It's one of those things that you start like butting up against it, and you're like, oh wow, I did not expect that would even be an issue. And it can be basic things about like, copyright licensing for fonts, like, oh, I can't just download a font and print a book with it. I have to make sure I have the license for it. That is the thing. But then when it comes to like bigger things, just like understanding layout, I'm very fortunate that I was working with people who have experience. Nathan D. Paoletta is my layout designer. He's released his own games as well. He did like Worldwide Wrestling and things like that. And he's very well established as a designer, and he's always laid out his own games, so he knows exactly what goes into it. So I've been able to like use him. I've been able to just use his experience, for making Huckleberry, and when it comes to layout and things like that. George Sellis is a professional artist who like he knows like, okay, you're going to print an A5 book and you're going to use CMYK ink, so I know that I need to have this sort of format for the art. And like I said, I sent him a single line. I give me a cool cowboy with a skull for a head, something like that. Obviously,
and he's
that.
like, here's a full digital masterpiece rendered, and here are the 2 different file sizes you will need, and different color profiles.
All the technical specs already set up for me. So I'm very fortunate in that way to be working with people who are able to like see those speed bumps before they happen. And I'm not having to like put out fires after it's already happened. But there's so much like even learning about when it comes to writing, how many words fit on a page. I have an A5 book and I know that I can fit about 3 paragraphs on a single page with a single column format. And I know that those paragraphs can be about 150 words each. And if one paragraph goes longer, then it has to be subtracted from a different paragraph. Learning about readability, that like, okay, long passages of text are very hard for reference. So when people want to look up these fighting mechanics, if they're reading like 4 paragraphs without headers in between, they're not going to be able to find what they want. I didn't know any of that when I started writing. And there are vestiges of that in Huckleberry that like, oh, I wish I would have broken up that paragraph into a couple different sections just to make it easier to reference now. It was trial by fire. It was my first time writing, and I'm very proud of where it is now. And because of the early access, I was able to fix so much of what I didn't learn. So we're currently working on version 1.5, which will be our print version. So we've had, we've got 5 major updates that have happened where I've gone back and I've tweaked things from previous versions of the document. And I hate to like recommend that people do an early access game for like how they design a game. There are so many benefits that I had from it, but there's still a lot of cons to it. So it's not necessarily the best way to go. But for someone who was learning on the way, it was much more forgiving.
Sure.
And just like, there's so many different technical aspects that I didn't know about at the time. Shout out to Alpha Stream. Teo Sabadia does a lot of great videos. I think he calls it Mastering the Dungeon is a different podcast, but he's got a podcast specifically about making tabletop RPGs. And it is just fantastic material that has stuff that like, oh, I didn't even realize that I needed to do that. Another great one is by Nathan D. Paoletta, the person who does my layout. He has a podcast called Design Games with Will Hindmarch. That ironically, I was listening to his podcast while I was creating what would become Huckleberry.
Perfect.
And that was before I even knew he did layout design. Like before I'd even talked to him, sent him a first email. So that was like a full circle moment. So I guess I would say that the best way to avoid those potholes is to talk with the people who already have done it. And if you don't know any of those people, a lot of very generous, smart people have put that information out on the internet for you to learn already. And you're still going to stumble and you're still going to make a couple mistakes, but at least you can avoid the worst parts.
Well, and you hope you learn from them too. And I think something you were saying that to me is one of the smartest. One of the smartest things about the early access, and I'm like, I can't actually say if you specifically mentioned this, is just that by the time you get to the print version, you're not going to need to issue reprints. There's been 18 months of people finding typos, finding all the small stuff, as well as adding 82 new pages and new mechanics and all the things. So, I think avoid some of the pitfalls of, honestly, like, I feel like D&D suffers from this, where like something gets put out. I feel like we really saw this with 5th edition 2014, like the necessity of supplements like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and other things that clarified and explained mechanics that were just badly written in that first version. But they were like, well, we printed it, so suck it up, make some homebrew, and then we'll eventually have an official correction for it.
Yeah, and they kind of end up relying on like the tables, the DMs themselves to like fix it and patch it. And then they have the supplements that patch like the worst parts, but not all the parts. And yeah, I think every system, if you play it, like D&D 5e had a long run before it had that refresh, 10 years. And if you play any system for 10 years, you're going to find cracks in it, I think, especially with the way that D&D players can be, where they want to, builds are a big part of the game. I want to make sure that I've got the best build possible. And I love that mentality, but I also am scared at the idea of designing a game for that style of gameplay.
I mean, yes, and there's a way that occurs to me that you did a little bit in how customizable your Huckleberry character might be. We haven't gone into like the really, really detailed specifics, but with D&D, because of a number of reasons, you can really break various features of the game in terms of your character and its interactions with the world. But I feel like people playing Huckleberry will get similar satisfaction over just how weird they can make their character. And almost certainly there's some way of breaking a mechanic that you may have found or may have not found yet, and will find as things get going more.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I was actually having a conversation with someone on the Discord the other day that they were asking, like, how does this mechanic specifically work? Because my player does it this way, and it stacks with that, and it stacks with this, and does this replace that? And you're right that it does kind of like nurture that idea. But I think that there's two things that Huckleberry does that kind of curb that a little bit. One is that characters have a scar mechanic where if you go down into death saves, essentially, like that sort of like state where you're half dead but not quite. If you go down into that, you gain a scar when you recover. And after so many scars, your character retires. They don't necessarily die, but they hang up their pistols and they ride off into the sunset, and it's time to play a new one. So that, for narrative reasons, I like that because it offers a chance for more variety. Like, the character's been beat up so many times. Why are they still doing this? And it also like injects a bit of freshness into a campaign when a new character shows up. But it also means that the builds, they don't have the time, like over 20 levels to start being refined to that specificity.
Yeah.
And then Huckleberry also has a mechanic where it's called your Wyrd die, which decreases as the game goes. And that is a big part of your defense. So basically, you can count it as like, you could call it like a luck die. It's how much luck you have, and it will run out by the end of a scenario.
Oh, yeah.
And it refreshes before the next bounty. But you're going to be running on fumes by the end. So it's kind of like a great leveler. So no matter what kind of build you have, you may be able to deal a whole bunch more damage than other people if you like specifically target combat, and this person, focuses more on investigation, like depending on how they want to like focus their characters. But at the end of the day, your luck will run out the same as everyone else's.
Sure.
In that way, every character's on a level playing field.
Yeah. That is really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think there is I think another aspect of D&D that is not often looked at, depending on your table, is the trauma of being an adventurer over time.
Yes.
And how probably that is going to give most people some form of PTSD.
Yeah.
But we just kind of leave it alone and don't talk about it. And it's considered fine. Yeah.
And
or like
HP is like an on-off light, you're down and you're dying, but someone gives you a healing word and suddenly you're up and you're fighting in the thick of it again. And you're not even thinking about how close you were to being dead just 2 seconds ago.
And you get 8 hours of sleep and it's like nothing ever happened, although you're lying in a blood-stained sleeping bag as your wounds have mysteriously closed. Yeah. And, I think some DMs have like figured out some rules around this, but really D&D and many other systems are just like, we're going to kind of just ignore that because all we need to know for our narrative purposes is your character alive or dead.
And one of my favorite story themes is the tragic hero. The hero that is fighting so hard for their home, for their family, whatever it is, and they win every single battle, but they lose the war because they're fighting an insurmountable force. And I try to tap into that story a lot with Huckleberry because it is meant to be a horror game. And you're fighting this supernatural force called the Wyrd that corrupts everything over time. And even if you're able to take down all of these monsters, it's a force of nature. It's like trying to fight climate change as a single person. It's just not going to be something you can do alone. Maybe you can slow it down for a bit, but it's not anything that like a single PC is going to be able to do, or possibly not even a group of them.
Sure.
And when you have that like pessimistic outlook in the world, I think it reflects a lot in the role play as well. So these players, they know that like, okay, I'm going out to fight another monster. There's going to always be one more monster. How am I going to process this? How does it affect my character? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it could almost just be as endless as you want it to be, as long as everyone's having a good time and you cycle new characters in and out. Yeah. Yeah. I had something else that I was thinking of in that vein, and then I lost it again. So it, clearly can't have been that important. I think for me, my sort of closing thought on this is I brought up because I was thinking about it. Are you familiar with the Bartle taxonomy of player types?
I have heard of it. I believe I've heard you talk about it specifically on the podcast before.
I have before because for me it's it's still this really interesting and I think very applicable way of looking at who your players are. So because I pulled it up based on a 1996 paper by a guy named Richard Bartle, classifying gamers based on their preferred actions within the game. And so what he divided into is a XY axis chart that has killers, achievers, socializers, and explorers. And you can kind of locate your own thing there. I remember. So I was thinking about breakers, and this is a thing that for me is kind of a subtype of this, specifically people within D&D and other games that try to break the mechanics. And where I was going with this is that to me, everything we've talked about Huckleberry feels like it is satisfying to each one of these player types. Where D&D kind of really focuses, for better and worse, it's a combat simulator. It rewards killers and breakers the most. It rewards people that want to slay monsters and break the mechanics the most. People that want to explore and socialize, maybe go play Thirsty Sword Lesbians, or a social game.
Yeah.
And I don't know that this was at all in your mind, but as I'm saying this, I'm curious if that has struck a chord of actually, yeah, I was thinking about how different players types might want to engage with this. And also fucking nice job. That's a not easy thing to do.
Yeah, it was sort of in my mind, not necessarily in that framework that you described, because the only time I've heard about this is you gave the definition. I'm like, yes, I've heard him talk about this before from listening to the show. But I got to give props to one of my favorite systems ever, the One Ring Second Edition. It's the Lord of the Rings inspired game by Free League. I think it's one of the best designed games ever. And it's got a skill system that has 3 different categories of skills. And based on how you approach problem solving. And in each of those 3 categories, there is an exploration skill, a martial skill, and a social skill.
Mm-hmm.
And that type of idea of okay, I brute force everything. How do I brute force exploration? How do I brute force social? How do I brute force martial? Or if I'm a bit more of a finesse character, how do I finesse exploration? How do I finesse social? And that idea was always in the back of my head about how can I make sure that I support these different approaches to gameplay without focusing entirely on combat, was something that I always wanted to do. Whether I succeeded on that, the players will tell me in the future, I'm sure. But I'd like to hope I did. And I really did want to, because Huckleberry, I knew it was an action game. That's one of the 2 pillars of the game. The second pillar is investigation, which covers a lot of social and exploration. It's hard to do social and exploration in an action scene. And I didn't want that action pillar to overrun the other pillar. And I didn't necessarily put guardrails in. I didn't want to stop the people from enjoying action so that this is better. But how can I just make sure that there is still a light on that was something that was constantly in the back of my head during the early days of design.
Yeah. Well, as far as I can say, I think you really hit that. Yeah. Again, it's not an easy spot to land when there's so many conflicting interests of players. Amazing. On that note, Stephen, I feel like it's time for me to ask the most important question I'm going to ask, which is, of course, what is your favorite character class and subclass? I was going to say maybe from Huckleberry, but that's not really how that character design system works. So what I would say is that D&D, absolutely. If you have favorite, if you're the thing, the class, the archetype that you like is from something not D&D, I'm going to just be like, well, what the hell is that? But what do you got for me?
I am a man who knows what he likes. I will always choose this same thing first, no matter what game it is, what video game, tabletop game, whatever it is. If I see this as an option, it's what I'm going for.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a elemental wizard. So in D&D, it'd be an evocation wizard or maybe sorcerer. But I want to be able to cast fireball and ice bolt at the same time. I want to be able to, I want to be able to freeze things and burn things. And I want to command the elements, specifically temperature. I guess that's what I'm drawn to. But I really want to be able to burn things and freeze things as far as I can please. Yeah. When I play 5e, I really try to hone in on that, like to the role play aspect of it. Like I might make a wizard that only learns ice spells or something like that, or maybe only acid spells, but that's a lot more limited, let's be honest. So, fifth level comes around and someone says, why didn't you take fireball? And I'm like, well, because that's a little too hot. I'm making ice puns this entire campaign. Haven't you heard? That's what I go for. Evocation wizard, hands down every single time.
You are also, I think, one of the only people that has had an instantaneous answer that is consistent and consistent across multiple games that I think you could design that kind of thing through most high fantasy or magical system sort of games.
Yeah.
As a side note, I'm reading Mage the Ascension, and I have no fucking idea how you do it in that game, but I
would find a way. I would find a way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
There's a running joke with my wife and I that whenever I'm being like cocky about something, I just say, I'm so good, I astound myself. And that's entirely from our time playing Diablo 3 together, where I was playing the wizard in that. And that's one of the quotes that the female wizard says. We just heard it so many times that I've started repeating it, 10, 15 years later. It's still in our vocabulary.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. Flashback. I haven't thought about those games in a long time. It's good games.
We had a lot of fun, a lot of hours put into those.
Yeah. I had a ton of hours in 1 and 2, and then I think I kind of, at that point, was less playing video games. Anyway. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for reaching out, for coming to join me. Like, what a delight. I am so excited, and congratulations again on Huckleberry.
Thank you.
Where can our listeners find the game if they would like to back it or purchase it? And where can they find you if they would like to know updates about what you're working on?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the game, go to huckleberryrpg.com. There are links there to pre-order. Because I'm a part-time lollygagger, you can use the code LOLLY and get $5 off the book, so you can get it at the backerkit pre-order price. It'll be coming to print in hopefully less than 6 months. We'll be delivering it is the goal, unless we hit any speed bumps. So we're almost there. And yeah, if you want to follow me, I'm on Blue Sky. That's my preferred social media platform. And there are links on huckleberryrpg.com to get there.
Amazing. And if you like what we are doing, you can, of course, follow The Roll Report. We are on TikTok and Blue Sky. We are at The Roll Report Cast. If you really like what we're doing, you can, in fact, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Roll Report. For as little as $1 a month, you could help us keep having amazing people like Stephen to talk to. What a joy. I congratulations
Same
again.
You're so much fun to talk to.
Thank you. I try. I do try. I had a brief conversation today with my housemate where they were like, you shouldn't be in charge of this emailing people bit thing that I'm doing for work right now. And it's like, you're good at talking to people and making them feel really good. You shouldn't email people. Okay, sure. I think emails should be informative and not full of polite nonsense, but that's me.
That's the efficient people.
I don't take it personally when I get an email from someone that is an efficient delivery of information and or request from me.
I appreciate it. Yeah. You and I would get along if we worked together.
Hey, there may come a time I would be delighted. That would be super fun. But yeah, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. It has been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And listeners, until next time, go use a rolling pin. I don't know, roll something. Roll some dough out with a pin. I got nothing. Until next time.